Hey friend, please subscribe. 1 second for you. Big deal for me.
I parked the transit van 2 blocks down from my parents' house in Scarsdale. Not because I had to, there's room in the driveway, but because I wasn't in the mood to hear Vernon's usual nonsense about delivery trucks dragging down the curb. Forget that. I wasn't giving him a free shot before I even stepped through the door. Cleo rolled up right behind me in her sedan, window down, face calm but unreadable. She's always sharp like that, steady. I leaned over, tapped the roof, and said, "Let's get this done." In my head, I prayed I'd keep my cool. No explosions, no drama, just facts. Quick note, before we continue, share in the comments which city or country you're listening from. It helps us see where you're tuning in from and figure out the best time to post new stories. Thanks. Now let's get into it. I'm Vance. I'm 35. I run a smart fridge food distribution network out of Long Island City. My fiancée Cleo's 32. She handles ops from home. No shady side hustles, no family money, no games. We've built everything clean. That matters. The house hadn't changed since I was 17. Same oak table, same fake floral centerpiece, same matching napkin rings. And the tension? That hadn't aged a day. As soon as we sat, Colette gave Cleo's wheelchair a once-over like it was a fashion accessory. "At least your knees don't ache on stairs, dear." Cleo smiled, deadpan. "Ramps are underrated." Trent snorted into his wine. Carmen stared at her plate. I reached for the water pitcher, kept my hand from shaking. That's when Vernon tapped the folder in front of him like it was a closing binder. "The deed transfer went through yesterday," he said, tone like a teacher handing back a failed test. "House is ours now. You can leave your keys on the table." I blinked. "I'm sorry?" He didn't flinch. "This is a family home." He didn't mean blood. He meant his kind of family. The Hale Capital ladder climbers with trust fund loyalty and polished smiles. I kept my face neutral, slid my phone into my lap, hit record. New York's a one-party consent state. I know my rights. I asked, "When did I supposedly agree to this transfer?" Vernon shrugged. "It was in the packet you signed last month. Estate planning. Tucked in between the business releases." Colette sipped her wine like it was soup. "Cleo, how do you manage daily upkeep? I imagine it's rather difficult." Cleo rested her elbow on the table, cool as glass. "Timers, reachers, discipline. You'd be surprised." Another knife from Colette. "Well, at least the chair keeps you from running around spending, I clenched my glass. Didn't bite. Trent leaned in. "I was thinking I could convert your old room into my office." Carmen flinched, just slightly. Leland, her husband, nodded like this was a strategy meeting. "It's good to see decisive leadership," he said, like they were proud of this. Cleo's hand slid onto my wrist. I let out a slow exhale, picked up my key ring, and started dropping them on the table. Front door, back door, garage. Each one hit the wood like a nail. Vernon's lips curled. "You want clean?" I said. "Be careful what you ask for." I didn't tell them I'd bought the second mortgage 3 days ago. Full assignment, Crowfield finances, clean transaction. That house might be theirs on paper, but I was now the senior creditor on the second lien. I asked Vernon one more thing. "You know hiding deed papers inside unrelated packets is fraud, right?" He didn't blink. "Read what you sign. Business 101. The app kept rolling. So did I. We left. I held the door open for Cleo. She didn't look back. In the car, she said, "We do this once. Clean. Public." I nodded. I wasn't into gray schemes, but I sure wasn't into being stolen from either. That night I drove straight back to the warehouse in Long Island City, rolled out a cot in the back office, no AC, no frills, just silence and steel racks. I was done playing nice in their house. I was halfway through calibrating the temp sensors on our Midtown demo unit when Bryn appeared in the doorway, already blocking someone behind her. "Two very important visitors trying to storm the loading bay," she said, voice flat. She held up both hands behind her back like they were pressed against the chest of whoever was pushing. I walked over. Through the scratched plastic window, I caught Vernon's sleeve and Colette's pearls. Carmen stood back, arms folded. Trent was already pacing like a pregame warm-up. Bryn mouthed, "Parents?" I didn't blink. "Not clients," I said. "They wait outside." My phone lit up like a pinball machine. 4 missed calls in 2 minutes. Vernon, then Colette, then Trent, then Carmen, all dumped straight to voicemail. I turned the volume off and went back to the calibration bench. Bryn slid the bay door closed. Her hand didn't shake. That girl could run logistics for a tank crew. 15 minutes later, a man in a rumpled city badge showed up with a clipboard and a tight-lipped frown. "Health inspection," he said. "Complaint about improper refrigeration and unsafe food prep protocols." I held the door open, calm. "Come on in. We log everything." Bryn grabbed our HACCP binder. I walked the inspector through every telemetry dashboard, live temps, humidity levels, backup battery checks. Cleo had built the UI clean and foolproof. The guy checked timestamps, sniffed around the prep station, and found nothing. Just cold, clean metal and a spotless floor. "Anonymous complaint filed at 7:22 a.m., he said. "Blocked number." He didn't say waste of my time, but his shoes scuffed hard on the way out. Back at the bench, Cleo popped up on video, hair pulled back, tank top and headset on. "Wexford Mutual's building manager tried to pause our install," she said. "He cited ownership verification." I didn't ask for details. She already had screenshots and the service ticket pulled up. I said, "Push it to Dana." "Below is install scope, client rep signatures. Everything. I believe in God, and I believe in sunlight. If you're going to swing at me, don't hide the bat." I called Dana Redmond, our attorney, and didn't sugarcoat it. "They're here," she said before I even asked. "All 4 of them, waiting in my lobby. They want clarity." I nodded, even though she couldn't see me. "Let's give it to them. Bring every doc, assignment, wire receipts, clean paper only." I hung up and told Bryn, "Keep the loading bay closed. Don't open it for anyone unless their name's on the delivery schedule." She texted me 30 seconds later, a photo of Colette staring through the glass with that tight, polite museum donor expression. Bryn captioned it, "2 non-clients refused entry. Smiling anyway." I laughed once. It felt mechanical. Cleo pinged over the files, signed LOIs from Halbert and Sloan, Wexford Mutual, and Tectra Media. Hard numbers, multi-year scopes, no fluff. I sent them to Dana, then grabbed the binder off my desk. Inside, the Crowfield assignment, the recorded admission transcript, and 2 wire confirmation printouts. Clean ink, full chain. "Let's go say hi," I told Cleo. She nodded, still calm. "Stick to the paper. And remember, don't let them push you into side deals." "I know. Say it. No gray." I turned off the monitor, stuffed the binder into my backpack, and locked up. On the way out, I passed Bryn updating a checklist on the bay wall. She didn't look up, but she nodded once. In the elevator, I prayed under my breath. Not for revenge, just for strength. Keep my voice steady, my facts tight, my temper sealed. Let my spine hold. Outside, the October wind slapped harder than it should have for morning. Cold, dry, metallic. Like the weather knew something was about to go down. The conference room at Dana Redmond's office was all glass and silence, with that polished midtown chill that makes people sit straighter than they normally do. We got there just past 2 p.m., less than 6 hours after the inspection stunt at my kitchen. The whole place smelled like filtered air and liability. My family was already waiting. Vernon stood the second we stepped in, hand twitching like he thought this was still his meeting to run. Dana's paralegal moved across the room with that quiet, lethal calm, one hand on a slim leather folder, and Vernon sat back down without being told. Carmen looked wrecked. Colette had her lipstick on wrong, barely noticeable, but enough. Trent wouldn't look up from his phone. Leland didn't even bother coming. I sat. Cleo stayed beside me, quiet. Dana gave me a small nod, then looked at the group like they were bored clients on a tight clock. I pulled the copies out of my bag and dropped them in front of me. Not tossed, placed, but hard enough that everyone at the table heard the slap of real weight. "I bought your second mortgage loan from Crowfield Finances," I said, eyes locked on Vernon. "They assigned the note and mortgage to me. That makes me your mortgagee on the second lien." Colette blinked slowly. Trent sat up straighter. Vernon stared at the binder like he couldn't decide whether to fight it or pretend it wasn't there. Dana picked up the handoff without missing a beat. "He's the legal assignee and holder of the second mortgage, junior to the primary. The assignment is perfected, enforceable, and recorded. You're looking at your new creditor." I reached into my pocket, unlocked my phone, and played the clip. Just the part where Vernon said it clean, how he tucked the deed transfer into a routine business packet. No emotion, no spin. Just his voice admitting fraud in that boardroom baritone he always thought made him sound invincible. Colette's voice cracked. "You recorded us?" I looked at her. "I record when I'm being cornered. It's not personal. It's called self-preservation." Cleo didn't speak. She didn't have to. Her hand on my arm said everything. Vernon straightened his blazer like he was about to switch gears. "You signed a personal guarantee last quarter, Vance, on a Hale Capital side vehicle. That binds you to us, like it or not." He was trying to pull leverage out of ashes. Dana calmly slid another folder my way. "We've seen it. He did slip a personal guarantee into a bundled packet of unrelated documents. But the assignment and the recorded admission both undermine that instrument. If this goes to litigation, discovery will be hostile, expensive, and very public, and your claim will not hold." Vernon looked to Trent like he expected backup. Trent looked at Dana and said nothing. I took out the next stack of paper, printed contracts. 3 executed letters of intent, 1 signed pilot contract, corporate clients, multi-year pipeline. This isn't a hobby, it's not a side gig, and it's not vending machines, Dad, so stop calling my work small. Trent muttered something, but no one picked it up. Carmen still hadn't spoken. Dana folded her hands in front of her. "We can litigate. In that case, we bring fraud, forgery, attempted unlawful eviction, and the false health complaint to the judge. That route will be public, time-consuming, and significantly more expensive for your side." Vernon opened his mouth, but the swallow came first. You could hear it. Colette looked like she was calculating social consequences more than legal ones. "And you think a judge will just take your side?" Dana didn't flinch. "Judges like clean paper, and he has it." I leaned back, let the words hang. No one rushed to fill the silence. Vernon tried to reassert control. "This isn't how families handle conflict." I looked straight at him. "This is exactly how your kind of family handles conflict. Off the books, in the dark, through hidden clauses. You taught me that, but I'm not doing it your way anymore." Carmen finally spoke, quiet but clear. "How long have you had this?" she asked. 3 days before Sunday," I said. "I bought it through assignment, took my own money, didn't ask permission." She looked down and nodded once. No more questions from her. Colette tried one last attempt to salvage grace. "We were trying to make the house stable. You were never supposed to make it a war zone." I didn't smile. "Then maybe you shouldn't have tried to throw me out like I was a squatter." Dana looked around the room, calm and final. "You have both options laid out clearly. The next step is up to you. But the legal standing is not in question." Vernon stood too fast. His chair scraped. "This is extortion." "No," I said. "This is called leverage. You taught me that too." The room held a beat of silence so thick you could feel the HVAC click in the ceiling. Cleo rested her hand on my shoulder. I stood up, looked each of them in the eye. "The choice is yours," I said. "You've already seen what I do when I'm forced to play defense." I zipped the binder closed, tucked the contracts back in, and nodded to Dana. We walked out without waiting for anyone to follow. We didn't even make it to the elevator before Dana's assistant called us back. They'd like to continue, she said, like this was a polite business lunch instead of a family brawl with legal footnotes. Back inside, the energy had changed. Vernon looked winded, but still trying to project authority. Colette had swapped her tone from offended to delicate, her favorite weapon. She folded her hands and leaned just far enough to look concerned instead of cornered. "We only ever wanted stability for you, Vance," she said softly, the kind of voice that kills reputations over tea. Then she turned to Cleo. "Cleo, dear, how do you manage domestic tasks? It must be challenging." Cleo smiled like someone watching a toddler swing a plastic bat. "We manage. You'd be amazed what I can do with a timer and a reacher." Colette blinked, lips tightening, not sure if she'd just been outclassed or insulted. Trent broke the silence first. "Can I at least measure my new office?" Dana didn't even look up from her notes. "Not your house." Trent's ears went red. "You can't just—" "I just did," she said. Leland muttered under his breath, "This is extortion by a failed heir." I turned toward him, steady. "You mean a self-made one? There's a difference." He looked away. Typical. Vernon steepled his hands like he was about to give a lecture. "You're blowing this out of proportion, son. Families handle assets strategically. You weren't ready for that level of complexity." I gave a short, humorless laugh. "Dad, your strategic assets are tax shell games wrapped in PR. You wanted me to inherit an investment shop that sails right up to the edge of the law and then blasts straight through when it's convenient. I'm a believer, and I can't carry that. You might call it business. I call it corruption." That got under his skin. You could see the jaw tighten, the fingers clench just enough to leave pale ridges on his knuckles. He jabbed a finger at Cleo. "She turned you against us." I didn't even blink. "No, she turned me toward a spine." Cleo didn't flinch, didn't even look at him. She just set her hand flat on the table like she was grounding lightning. Colette exhaled through her nose like she was smelling spoiled wine. "You think any of this is righteous? You're tearing down a legacy because of pride." Before I could answer, Carmen spoke. Her voice cracked once, but she didn't stop. "Mom, remember that article you made me send him? The one about men who throw away legacy for independence? You said it might make him think twice." The room went dead quiet. Colette's eyes cut sideways. "Well, if the shoe fits." I pulled a new document from my folder, slid it across the table so it landed right in front of Vernon. Typed summary, dated lines. "Here's the list of every payment I made on property taxes since I was 22. The roof repair I covered when the storm hit. The plumbing invoice you told me to just handle because it was too small for the family office. And the email from Crowfield's counsel transferring the lien assignment to me. Those are called facts." Vernon leaned forward, nostrils flaring. "You can't win a family war with paperwork." Dana didn't even glance up. "Courts love paperwork." That shut him up. I took a deep breath, slow and clear, so no one mistook the next words for emotion. "Here are the terms again. You pay off what you owe, every cent, or you transfer the property to me within 60 days, peacefully. And yes, I'll pay the deposit for your rental. That's more than you ever did for me." Colette's mask cracked. It wasn't a sob. She'd never give that satisfaction, but her voice went sharp around the edges. 60 days to destroy our lives? 60 days to start over without lying, I said. Dana gave me a nod like a referee confirming the score. Trent leaned forward, fake calm. "You think you're better than us because you built a couple of smart fridges." I turned to him. "No, I think I'm freer than you because I don't have to lie about where my money comes from." He didn't respond. Cleo finally spoke again, voice even. "This could have been simple. You took something that wasn't yours. Now you fix it, and we all move on." Colette looked her up and down. "You talk as if you understand what it takes to build a family name." Cleo met her eyes. "Names don't mean much when they're written on fraud paperwork." The silence after that was long enough to hear the air vent hum. When it was clear they had no counter, I added, "Also, one more thing." I pulled out a color printout from my folder and slid it toward Dana. She turned it around, laying it face up for the table. A screenshot, time-stamped, caller ID clearly visible. Hale Capital's switchboard. Time of call, 7:22 a.m. The exact window the anonymous health complaint had been filed against my company. Colette's face drained of color. Vernon stared at the photo, then at me, then back to the table. Dana didn't speak. She didn't need to. The evidence sat there like a weight no one could pick up. Vernon finally said, "That's circumstantial." Dana raised an eyebrow. "Your firm's internal line called the complaint desk to trigger a health inspection at your son's company less than an hour before you arrived here demanding answers. That's not circumstantial. That's malicious interference." He started to protest, but Dana cut in clean. "If you're smart, you'll settle this quietly. Because if I have to file, we will subpoena every internal log your firm's got, and I guarantee the discovery process will not be kind." Colette whispered, "Vernon." Like maybe she was realizing he'd pushed one step too far. He closed his mouth. I stood up, calm again. "You've got both options and 60 days. You can pay the lien, or you can sign the deed. Either way, this ends on paper, not in shouting." Cleo backed her chair up with a smooth push. "And next time you have a question about how we manage, try asking without the insult." Dana gathered the folders, stacked them like final evidence. "We'll expect your written decision by Friday at 9 a.m. sharp." We walked toward the door. Behind me I heard Colette whisper, "He's really going to take it." And Vernon answer, barely audible, "He already has." 2 days later, Bryn called before sunrise. Her voice was tight, not panicked, but close. "Vance, one of the coolant lines on the delivery truck was cut halfway through. Driver caught it when he was checking pressure. Would have dumped the load before Midtown." I sat up in the warehouse cot, pulled on my jacket, and drove straight to the yard. The truck was parked under the floodlights, hood open, coolant streaked along the inside panel like someone had scored it with a knife. No cameras covered that corner, one of the blind spots I'd meant to fix. I took photos, wrote a quick statement, and called it in. The officer was polite but already in that mode where you could tell he didn't expect much. "File it as vandalism," he said. "We'll note it." "Tampering with a commercial refrigeration line is a felony," I reminded him. He nodded, wrote slower, and left with a shrug. I moved on. Annoyed, yeah, but not rattled. Fear burns fuel, focus builds muscle. By noon, my inbox chimed with a new message from Wexford Mutual's building manager. Subject line, "Pilot install hold." The body was short. Corporate had asked to pause the project pending vendor stability review. I forwarded the signed LOIs, the warranty letter, and telemetry uptime data. Then I called Cleo on video. She read the email, eyes narrowing. "Loop in their HR," she said. "They're the ones who pushed for wellness integration. Let's remind them who signed the initiative." She was right. Within the hour, I had HR CC'd on the thread. I copied our response plan, added the inspection clearance report, and kept the tone polite but pointed. By afternoon, the tension in my chest had settled into rhythm. Work, document, protect, repeat. I took Cleo to physical therapy that evening, same as every week. While she worked with her therapist, I sat in the waiting area with a notebook and wrote a list. Redundancy gear, alternate staging space, a crisis FAQ for clients, and a short PR template for any instability rumors. I wasn't about to let my father's whispers stain what we'd built. Wednesday night church was quieter than usual. Midweek crowd, half the seats empty, just the hum of old radiators and low voices. Pastor Raymond stood up front in rolled sleeves, Bible open but not reading. "Tell the truth and let God handle the echo," he said. "The echo's never ours to control." That line stuck. I wasn't there to hide behind religion, but I needed the reminder. When we got home, Cleo was tired, so I tucked her in and went back to the office corner with my laptop. Around 11, My phone buzzed. Carmen. I need to talk when Leland isn't around. The message was short, no emojis, no filler. Anytime, I texted back. You picked the place. There was a long pause, then, soon. The next morning, Bryn caught a guy watching her across the street when she left the LIC bay. She said he was leaning against a sedan, phone up, pretending to scroll. When our security guard stepped out, he bolted. No plates visible. Probably nothing, Bryn said when she called, trying to sound casual. Probably something, I answered. Add another guard for evening shift, and change the access code tonight. Already done. Good kid. That afternoon, I called Crowfield's general counsel just to confirm what I already knew, that the mortgage assignment was clean. She answered in her crisp Boston accent. All business. No backdoor clauses, she said. Your wire hit first, Mr. Kettering. He tried to buy it through a shadow LLC 2 days later. We flagged it. That confirmed what I suspected. Vernon had tried to undo me before the ink even dried. When I hung up, I drove north, out past the city haze, into Scarsdale. The roads were slick from earlier rain, headlights bouncing off wet leaves. I slowed as I turned onto the old street. The house glowed like a showroom, all warm lamps and shadowy movement inside. Through the front window, I saw Trent standing in my old room, measuring curtains, tape in hand. The kind of gesture meant to poke, not fix. Cleo called just as I was idling down the street. You there? She asked. Yeah, I said. They're making themselves comfortable. Let them, she said. We won't blink. I smiled at that. Her calm was steady enough to anchor me. Back at the warehouse, I poured a coffee and opened the system dashboard. Every fridge pinged green. I started upgrading the firmware, added a cold chain alert that would ping my watch if any unit dropped below threshold. If someone wanted to sabotage the next delivery, they'd have to fight code and cloud sync, not just a hose clamp. Around midnight, I pulled up the recording again, the one from the ambush dinner. Vernon's voice filled the quiet. Read what you sign. Business 101. That line hit harder the second time. Not because of what it meant, because of how proud he sounded saying it. I let it burn, but only enough to keep the fire under control. Rage is easy. Precision takes work. I closed my laptop, stretched the ache out of my shoulders, and wrote one last note in the margin of my pad. Don't fight dirty. Fight thorough. Before bed, I stood by the warehouse window. Outside, the cranes swung slow over the East River, lights blinking like tired eyes. Somewhere out there, my father was realizing that for the first time in his life, he couldn't control the outcome with a phone call or a favor. That thought didn't make me gloat. It steadied me. Because if this was what fighting clean felt like, I could live with it. The next morning, Dana's office drafted the formal hammer, notice of assignment and demand to cure. It laid out everything in plain black ink, the principal balance of $842,500, accrued interest since the lien's original filing, and the exact steps needed for reconveyance. No threats, no language to scare, just facts. Her paralegal overnighted copies to both Vernon and Colette, certified with receipt confirmation. Dana called it surgical accountability. I called it the line in concrete. Midday, my phone buzzed. Vernon. I let it ring once before picking up. His voice was lower than usual, stripped of its usual varnish. You sure about this? I didn't pace. I just stared at the dock while 2 carts got loaded for the Tribeca client. There's a paper trail a mile wide, I said. We could still restructure it, he offered. Set up a trust, allocate shares, protect the house without scorched earth. No gray, I said. I told you already. That line's closed. He hung up without another word. 2 hours later, Colette sent me an email titled, Context for Moving Forward. Inside was a bulleted list of what she considered family obligations. Things like hosting Thanksgiving in a consistent location, inviting in-laws to graduations regardless of tension, and protecting legacy assets from public spectacle. I replied with 2 sentences. You have 2 options. 60 days start the moment you choose. That night, Leland jumped into the mess. He forwarded me a press inquiry from a minor gossip blog asking if our company was a front for political activity. Something about Cleo's old Twitter posts being flagged as activist adjacent. I looped in Dana immediately. Then I replied with one sentence. We're a certified food logistics platform committed to safety, wellness, and service. No oxygen given. Wexford re-engaged the next morning. HR had stepped in. They overrode the manager's hold and pushed the pilot forward. Their new message? Add a secondary unit to the second floor. Employees are excited. Halbert and Sloan wasn't far behind. They wanted expanded telemetry on their temperature dashboards. Tectra asked for allergen labeling customization across their vending hubs. Cleo took point. She rerouted our dev queue and had 3 revised scope letters on my desk before I finished my second coffee. I signed them all, added a line thanking each client by name, and sent them back with PDF stamps. Every time our kitchen line beeped green, I felt steadier. Every upgrade we shipped felt like a counterweight to the games my parents kept playing. Dana called late that afternoon. Vance, the guarantee your father slipped into that packet last quarter. It's legally binding unless we contest it. I figured. But the good news is, I'm filing for rescission with a contemporaneous recording. The fact he admitted to hiding documents in that stack undermines intent and cancels leverage. His signature works against him now. Good, I said. You still want to give them the off-ramp? Yeah, I said. If they want peace, they can have it. But not for free. After I hung up, I drafted the cleanest message I could write. No heat, no theatrics. Just one final offer. We can do this without court. I mean that. Choose one of the 2 paths by Friday, 9 a.m. Either cure the lien in full or transfer the deed and accept 60 days. I'll pay your deposit. The choice is yours. I copied Dana, Cleo, and Carmen. Trent replied with a meme of a gavel and the caption, "Order in the court, losers." Classy. Later that night, Carmen messaged me. Can we meet somewhere quiet? Away from Midtown. Leland's watching my calendar. I texted her a time and place. Astoria. 8 a.m. Coffee at Haven and Grain. She sent back one word. Booked. That night, Cleo and I sat in the corner of the warehouse, whiteboard out, numbers on paper. Let's run their move-out budget, I said, just to see if it's viable. We did it like any other ops meeting. 1-bedroom, 2-bedroom comparisons, security deposit assumptions, movers, U-Haul rental or full-service quote. She tapped the marker against her knee. If we front the deposit in 2 months, what's the cap? $9,800, I said. Anything past that, they can cover themselves. But at least this way, no one gets to say we left them with nothing. She nodded. That's the offer. Not revenge. Just math. I wrote the number on the whiteboard and circled it twice. After she fell asleep, I stayed back by the desk. The warehouse hummed around me. Cold fans and stainless steel. The quiet weight of machines that didn't judge, didn't lie, didn't negotiate. It felt like a place built on work, not posturing. And that was exactly where I belonged. Carmen showed up at Haven and Grain in a zip hoodie, no ring, no makeup, hair tied back like she hadn't slept much. She spotted me in the back corner and slid into the seat across from mine without even ordering. Just wrapped her hands around the cup I'd already placed there. I told them I had a dermatology appointment, she said. Leland thinks I'm still in Midtown. I left my location off. She looked around once before leaning in. He says you're ungrateful. Dad says I'm naive. And Mom calls Cleo a project. She didn't cry. She just stared down into her coffee like she expected it to give her answers. I can't do this anymore. I let that sit before I spoke. What exactly can't you do? She exhaled. The lying, the double-blind family games, the part where I send you birthday messages on silent just so they don't yell. Bram sees it. He's not stupid. She wiped her thumb across the lid and looked up. Vernon offered to cover Bram's full tuition last week. College, apartment, stipend, full ride. But only if I stop enabling your defiance, his words, and get Trent in line to take responsibility for the family property. My stomach tightened. Bram was 17, a junior with a portfolio full of sketches and 3 DIY three-dimensional prints. I leaned forward. Carmen, you owe Bram truth, not leverage. She nodded, slow. He wants to do industrial design. He's already researching schools. Leland keeps pushing finance. They're fighting every day now. Last night he threw out Bram's sketch pad. I shook my head. That kid deserves better. I know, she said, voice tight. That's why I'm here. I want to know the full picture, all of it. So I gave it to her, told her flat out, the second lien assignment, the mortgage transfer, Vernon's recorded admission. The 2 clean paths they had, pay or deed, nothing in between. Her shoulders dropped like someone had lifted weights off them. Good, she said. You're building something honest, no matter what they call it. We walked around the block in the cold. She talked about nonsense, a podcast she hated, her co-worker's bad perfume, the sound the dishwasher made when it was half-loaded wrong. All filler, all important. When we stopped again, she asked, would Cleo be okay with me crashing a few nights if I left Leland? Just until I figure things out? Yeah, I said. No conditions. Just come. Later that evening, I got a text from an unknown number. Hey, can we talk about design schools? Mom said you'd be straight with me. It had to be Bram. I replied, yeah. Come by the LIC kitchen after your last class tomorrow. He showed up in his school hoodie and worn sneakers, backpack slung low, looking cautious but curious. Bryn met him at the door and waved him through. I gave him a quick tour, the prep line, cold chain dashboards, staging carts. I explained the workflow, how deliveries got built out based on predictive demand. This actually matters, he said, running a hand over one of the insulated bins. Like, people eat because of this. Yeah, I said, and that's the point. Cleo rolled in on video from the apartment. She walked Bram through the ops dashboard, how she prioritized incoming requests, rotated delivery zones, and balanced power loads. Tools make people stronger, she said. If you learn to think that way, you can design anything. He didn't say much, but he didn't stop smiling either. Before he left, I handed him a book on service design and a printed list of programs I knew weren't built on prestige but skill. Honest schools, honest work. He grinned like someone had opened a window in a room he didn't know had walls. Thanks, Uncle Vance, he said. I didn't know it could look like this. That night, well past midnight, my phone buzzed again. It was Carmen. I'm packing a bag. I sent her the guest Wi-Fi password and the code for the side entrance at the warehouse. She showed up 40 minutes later, red-eyed and breathing like she'd just sprinted through the dark. I opened the door. She didn't say anything, just walked in and pulled me into a hug that shook both of us. Carmen's hug still sat on my shoulders like armor when Friday hit. 8:53 a.m., Dana pinged me. They picked option 2. Grudging but formal. Vernon's email was 2 sentences. No greeting. We will deed the house properly. We will vacate within 60 days if the agreed rental deposit is funded. I replied in under 5 minutes with instructions to a neutral third-party escrow in White Plains. Cleo triple-checked the wire routing before I hit send. By 10:30, we were seated across the table from my parents in Dana's glass conference room. The air felt colder than usual. Maybe it was just clean. Vernon was dressed like he thought this was court. Navy blazer, tight smile, jaw locked. Colette had pearls on. She always wore pearls when she needed to feel like someone was watching. Trent leaned against the wall with his arms crossed like a linebacker benched for mouthing off. Dana opened the folder and slid the deed transfer across for signature. All parties acknowledged the clean assignment of the second lien and full transfer of title to Vance Kettering, she said, steady and clear. Chain of custody is complete. There are no missing pages. Vernon signed with a grip that looked like it hurt. Colette hesitated, but her signature was the same practiced swirl it had always been. I didn't gloat. No comments, no smirk. Just signed where I was told. The recording sat in my back pocket, Full battery, full truth. I didn't need it today, but it was there. As Dana stamped the documents, Colette leaned forward just slightly. "Are you planning to turn the house into a shelter?" she asked, like she was asking if I'd opened a tattoo parlor in a church. I met her eyes. "I plan to turn it into what it should have been, a place that doesn't shut the door on its own." Dana didn't blink. We wrapped in under 30 minutes. Outside the building, Trent trailed us to the sidewalk. He waited until Colette was in the car before saying, "Enjoy your charity palace." I didn't stop walking. "Enjoy your office at someone else's house." He flinched like I'd slapped him. Inside the lobby, Carmen pulled me into a quieter corner. Her hoodie hood was up, sunglasses in hand. "Thank you for not rubbing it in," she whispered. I shrugged. We build, not spike. Cleo and I drove up to Scarsdale that night. The house looked the same, but quieter. We parked by the curb, unlocked the door with the new key Dana had passed me, and stepped in without knocking. No one was home. That was the deal. We walked through the rooms like strangers. Living room, still stiff with furniture no one ever used. Dining room, the oak table like a memory that didn't realize it had expired. Cleo wheeled to the front hallway and pointed at the baseboards. "This threshold's too high for most chairs," she said. "We'll need a beveled entry plate here and here." We made our way upstairs. I measured every doorway. She took notes. We stood in what used to be my bedroom while she sketched a lift platform plan against the side porch. She smiled at the lines. "Let's make this place work for anyone who shows up." That's when I knew it was already becoming ours. Not because of the papers, but because of the purpose. Back at the LIC kitchen, Bryn had already started a shared doc in our internal workspace. Title, VCK House, Ops. She messaged me the link with, "Just organizing thoughts. Vance plus Cleo plus Kettering. Can rename later." "No need," I typed back. "It fits." 2 days later, I walked into a little shop in Queens that made signage for small businesses and brass plaques for churches. No digital nonsense, just a quiet man with calloused hands who showed me a tray of samples. I pointed to one, simple font, no scroll work. He nodded and asked what it should say. I told him straight, VCK House, a place to land when family shuts the door. He raised his eyebrows but didn't ask. I paid in cash. Said I'd pick it up the following week. That night, I lay down at the warehouse. No lights, just cold fans humming and steel shelves stacked with parts and prep bins. The cot creaked when I shifted, but I didn't care. I closed my eyes and, for the first time in weeks, I slept straight through. 6 full hours, no interruptions, no phone alerts, no planning lists in my head. No dreams, just rest. 60 days moved like weather. Some days passed quiet, like air before a storm. Others came sharp, surprises in the inbox, freight requests doubling overnight, Cleo and I juggling install orders between back-to-back kitchen repairs. Vernon and Colette left in stages. 1 week it was the art from the den, bubble-wrapped like treasure. The next it was the silver chest, lifted like it contained their dignity. I stayed away, like I said I would. Not because I didn't care, because I did, and because boundaries are stronger than bitterness. Their boxes were neat, labeled in Colette's small, decisive handwriting. Trent handled the grunt work. I spotted him once from the alley near the side gate, slamming the trunk shut harder than needed. They never said goodbye. Carmen filed for separation the day after the move-out deadline. Leland replied with a snide, lawyered-up email about undue influence and domestic disruption. Dana's reply came back short and flat. The decision is independent and documented. Further attempts to intimidate will be noted. Full stop. Halbert and Sloan signed their third-floor expansion with a scope update for ambient temp tracking. Wexford reinstated our pilot and greenlit a full rollout through next quarter. Tectra signed a 2-year supply agreement with an option to expand. The pipeline was no longer theory. It was real, solid, ours. At the house, we kept some bones, didn't gut the soul out of it. The kitchen stayed mostly intact, right down to the drawer where I used to hide dinner rolls as a kid. The old maple tree out back got a pruning but stayed rooted. But the living room? That went first. We tore out the antique seating, ripped up the stiff rug, opened the whole space, rebuilt it with modular furniture, weighted chairs that didn't tip, a wide ramp to the back hallway, and soft flooring that absorbed sound. The room went from formal silence to daily movement. Cleo designed the check-in flow. "Not intake," she said. "That feels clinical. We don't need charts. We need dignity." She built it on one screen. Names, optional contact, allergies, how you'd like us to address you, goals if you have any. But no forms that poked or pried, just steps to get from entry to comfort. "House rules, not hoops," she told Bryn. "They need consistency, not control." Bryn nodded and drafted a one-pager. No fees, no sermons, no pressure to share. No one gets punished for needing rest. We hung the plaque just inside the front door. Same brass, same message I gave the guy in Queens. VCK House, a place to land when family shuts the door. For youth cut off over profession, beliefs, or disability. The first resident came on a Monday. 17, violinist, soft-spoken. Her stepdad had tossed her instrument down the stairs and told her to stop acting above her place. She showed up with a duffel bag and one cracked bow. We gave her a room, a resource binder, and time. Second was a guy training to be a plumber. His mom hated trades and said she wouldn't support dirty work. He slept 12 hours his first night and woke up asking if he could help scrub the hallway. Third came limping, wrist brace, small frame, quiet. His father called him weak for needing PT after an injury. We didn't ask what kind. We helped him carry his things upstairs, let him be. 3 nights later, he asked Bryn if we had a tool set he could borrow. Bram spent a full Saturday building bunk frames with me in the back room. He was better than I expected. Precise, patient. Talked about design like it was oxygen. He asked me if structure always came with tension. I said no, only when people force control into it. That stuck with him. Colette drove by once in her sedan, slow, deliberate, didn't roll the window down. I saw her from the porch but didn't wave. A week later, a florist dropped off a plain envelope. No note, just a card that said, "House looks tidy." That was the closest she ever came to an apology. I called the bank a few days after we opened the second floor. I gave them the file number for the lien assignment and the transfer confirmation. The clerk took a minute, tapped her keys, then said, "All set. Everything's clean." Sometimes justice isn't a speech. It's a file number and a stamp. 3 months after the move, I was fixing the lower hinge on the pantry cabinet, third time it had loosened up, when the doorbell rang. I wiped my hands, crossed the hall, and opened it. Bram stood there with his backpack slung low, hood up, sneakers scuffed from the train. He didn't look mad. He didn't look afraid either, just worn thin. "Uncle Vance," he said, voice low. "Can I come in? Dad says I'm throwing my future away." I stepped aside. "This door is open, remember?" He stepped in, slow. His eyes scanned the hallway. Clean walls, soft lighting, no noise but the hum of the kitchen fridge. He took a breath like the air hit different in here. "It feels safe," he said. "I didn't think it would, but it does." We sat at the kitchen table. He pulled his bag close, unzipped it, and pulled out a beat-up folder with school names, portfolio printouts, and 3 rejection letters. He didn't show me those. He just looked at his hands. "Leland told me last night that if I pick industrial design, he's cutting me off. Said I was being stubborn. Said I was doing this to spite him." He shook his head. "I'm not even mad. I'm just tired." I nodded. "Stubborn keeps a table level," I said. "Doesn't mean it's broken." He almost smiled. "Mom said you'd say something like that?" Cleo rolled in from the den with a plate of hot sandwiches balanced on one knee and a printed list of design studios tucked under her phone. She set it between us. "We'll call 3 on Monday," she said. "All take apprentices. Most don't care about GPA. just hands and follow-through. Bram looked down at the list like it was a map he didn't know existed. "Thanks," he said, voice catching just slightly. "I don't know where else I'd go." "You're here," I said. "That's enough for now." Later that night, after he'd gone back to Carmen's for the weekend, I sat in the kitchen alone and thought about that Sunday months ago. Vernon tapping the folder, telling me the deed was done, telling me to drop my keys and leave. He thought he was staging a moment, a ritual of control, a power grab in blazer sleeves and shareholder logic. I didn't scream. I didn't break. I gave him a paper trail, an assignment, and a mirror. I took out my phone and snapped a photo of the plaque we'd hung by the door, sent it to Dana. She replied almost instantly, "Cleanest revenge is making their angle irrelevant." I wrote back, "Call it restoration." Around 10, I walked out to the porch to check the locks. That's when I saw Vernon's sedan parked across the street, half in shadow. He didn't get out, didn't honk, just sat there, hands on the wheel, staring at the steps and the plaque beside them. He thought I'd turn this house into a weapon, something loud, public, a pointed finger. I hadn't. I turned it into a door. That's worse for him. I went back inside and opened my ledger, the one with every major action since day one. The mortgage buyout, the wire to escrow, the notarized deed, the design receipts, the ramp invoices, the welcome kit for every resident. I checked the last few entries and closed the cover. I could still hear the echo of that Midtown conference room, clean paper, 2 fair options, and a deposit I paid without being asked. We didn't win by punishing. We won by building. That's the part they never understood. And yeah, I won't lie. Watching the structure Vernon built on control and posturing collapse under its own weight felt good. But the best part? It didn't just fall. We built something that stands. Around 11, Bram texted me a photo, hand-sketched, pencil lines sharp. It was a modular fridge front that flipped down into a bench. "For rest stations," he wrote. "Compact and accessible." I sent him a thumbs up. No lecture, no edits. Then I turned out the lights, locked the side door, and whispered a short prayer. Not for victory, not for payback, for steadiness, for provision, for VCK House to outlast the noise, and for whoever rings that bell next to know. The door swings open. What about you? Have you ever had to rebuild your peace after family tried to break it? If this story hit home, drop your thoughts in the comments or just say you liked it. It really helps the channel. And don't forget to like and subscribe. It's only one click for you, but it means a lot to us. Love you guys.
YouTube picked this for you. Tap it. Let's see if they guessed right.